right, what is up, everybody? Welcome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys can hear me, please put a 1 in the chat. Make sure my settings are good. Mic check. Perfect. All right, so I've been working on a couple of things for the last couple of days, and I just got finished literally like 5 minutes ago, and just realized that everybody's going live, I'm assuming, in regards to the Delphi case, because it looks like they released the transcripts to the. Oop, I'm getting feedback. Hold on. Just a little bit. But yeah, they released the transcripts from October, so I guess I will go over those first, but just to kind of show you what I've got. I saw a Reddit post. I thought it was very interesting. There's a couple other things I'm going to go through as well, but just to give you a sneak peek here. Let me bring this over. It'll stay. I hate Windows 11. I really do. If you guys see this, I saw this post, so I can't take credit for it, but oh my gosh, my jaw dropped because I've been trying to recreate whatever this thing is in the middle. And I saw a post with this because they did actually confiscate from Richard Allen's home a Fox. It's a black. They describe it as a black and green hoodie, Fox brand. And oh my gosh, the resemblance is quite close. Good volume, good deal. So, but we'll look at that later on. We'll first get into the transcript. We'll read through it, talk about it for a bit, but I want to focus on this stuff today. You also hate Windows 11 too. It has its perks, but then this photo thing, when you're trying to move it, it's always trying to give you a different box. I have my border up so you can't see it, but I'm sure most of you probably have Windows, know what I'm talking about. It's a pain in the butt. Anyway, but yeah, we'll take a look at it, especially when you see the video of him actually walking, because you can actually see the flap from the outside coat kind of open up a little bit, and it almost looks like this symbol here. It's kind of wild, but I've got some other things to talk about, the witness statements, so much. So I guess, just curious in the chat, have you guys heard or read the transcript yet? Let me know in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you have, just kind of curious, or a 2 if you haven't. But we will go through them, and then we'll get into what I was preparing. Like I said, I wasn't ready for that to be released today. So let's, first, we always like to give back by featuring the missing. So today's missing, we have Athena Huff, 15 years old, brown hair, brown eyes, just 5'2", 150 pounds. She went missing on November 16th. So just 4 days ago. Says she was leaving her residence in Eldersburg in Maryland to go to the local playground, but she never returned home. She was wearing black hooded sweatshirt, with red writing, black pants, dark socks, purple slide shoes. If you have any information, you can call Carroll County Sheriff's Office at 410-386-2900. Once again, that's Athena Huff, 15 years old, missing out of Eldersburg, Maryland. All right. Okay, let's see what you guys said. A lot of 2s. Okay, cool. So this will be new for a lot of us, because I think this just came out. So before I read this, because the last time we talked about like Judge Goal and all that kind of stuff, it seems like to divide the chat a little bit. I know a lot of people are on different sides when it comes to this. I just ask, please be respectful in the chat to others, and we'll get on with it. Let me pull this up here. Move this. Get out of my way. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you all had a great weekend. Thanks for the update and all your hard work, Chris and mods. Love you all. Thank you so much, Tom, for the $10. Like I said, I've got an exciting show, and had nothing to do with the transcript, but this will be interesting. So here it is, and I'll try to blow it up. Let's see, this PDF. Okay, here it is. And we'll just kind of go through it here. And I'm going to spend too much time on it, but we'll read it all. All right. Okay. So this was what, October 19th. Okay. So here we go. It starts out with the prosecuting attorney, Nicholas. We'll just go Nicholas. Judge, I wanted to do some instructions. I finally got my approval for our counsel to hire a paid attorney to help me. Oh, that makes sense, because if you guys remember, it was like a 3-minute hearing. There was footage, obviously, because it was going to be a live hearing. And we did see a guy sitting next to the prosecutor who we had never seen before. It seems like he's going to be like the co-counsel. I forget his name. We did look him up, so but that makes sense. So it looks like he's got some help on the prosecution side. So the court says okay. McLeland, small town local government. So this is there he is, Jim Luttrell. Retired prosecutor from Grant County. He decided to come aboard. Okay, have a seat. McLeland, he signed the oath to my office. The court says okay. And all that. I'm going to handle a written appearance. And then here is James for the first time. Nice to meet you, Judge. Court responds, nice to meet you, Jim. McLeland says next week. Court says okay. McLeland says, or maybe tomorrow if I have time, Judge, if I get it done. Court says, okay, McLeland, but he will be entered in, and we're trying to get him up to speed. Court says, okay. And let me take a sit, because this is going to be a minute. Looks like it's a long document. Let me know if I'm going too fast or if it's just right. Trying to get to the important stuff. So here we go. Bradley Rosie. Well, I'm the one that kind of asked to huddle up. So if you want me to lead or if you want me to say some things, I'm okay with whatever approach you want to take here. Court says okay, or go ahead. Mr. Rosie says, well, I think, and then it looks like he gets interrupted. The court, I've got Jody's got our portable FTR going just so that oh, okay, that's fine. Got it on record. Mr. Rosie, obviously I'm happy to hear that the court's going to make some decisions on the pending pleadings today. Court says, uh-huh. Mr. Rosie, I assume Andy, which is in referred to Andy Baldwin, co-counsel, feels the same way. It's time to kind of get some closure, if you will, with regards to those items, so that we can move forward. It's probably obvious that the tension from our side is coming, from the words disqualification that were murmured in the phone conference that we had a couple of weeks ago. I'm assuming you understand how that kind of raises the intensity level of the circumstances. And I guess if you have my concern today, is that we're going to go out on the kind of in the public, so to speak, in the courtroom, on the record, and have a discussion about the ongoing investigation. And that's what I kind of gathered from the email, I think you invited Nick to talk about that if he wanted to. Court, again, uh-huh. Mr. Rosie. And it makes me a little uncomfortable because I don't know, first of all, there are no pleadings that are pending, whether they're motions to disqualify or contempt citations or whatever they might be, that really frame any of the issues. And I have no problem. I don't have any problem talking about this stuff privately on the record in in an ex parte type confidential hearing. I just think it's difficult to expect that there will be any kind of structure to the idea of, hey, there's an ongoing investigation. Just tell us what's going on. And I don't know that it has any relevance to do to what we're really trying to accomplish today. And I also don't know why Nick would want to talk about an ongoing investigation in public, knowing that in itself could be a little damaging to the circumstances. And so we're lawyers. We're used to having issues framed. We're used to having the opportunity to prepare. And I don't have anything to hide. And I know he doesn't have anything to hide. You've maybe gathered that we've cooperated. We ran into the state police post, our respective post, if you will. And I had somebody advise me of my rights, and I waived those, and I gave you a formal statement. He did the same. I'm not sure that we're going to benefit or that we will have, that this will be a productive just to open floor this. And that's my biggest concern today. And the court again, just checking chat, making sure everything's good. Okay. All right. Now it's, all right. So that was Rosie, excuse me. Now here's Baldwin. I'm more of a like the due process side. I'm not really sure what will happen, but I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and I would like the opportunity to know what's going to happen and prepare for them for their claiming or whatever before it happens. And I don't want to say ambushed, but it's hard to know for me what to do when I don't know what's happening. There's not a pleading we can respond to, things like that. So, you had indicated, when Nick said, I don't know if he said the word disqualification, but. All right. So the court says, oh, he did. Baldwin says, was it that word? And the court, again, Baldwin says, okay, I didn't know if he just said it in a more generic way. And then the court, in a negative response, Baldwin responds, and your response was, I'm leaning in that direction, or something along those lines. And again, the court, Mr. Baldwin. And so that's, a cause of concern. I mean, we're still wanting to try this case in January, and I'm willing to, we have made changes at my office that will prevent this for ever happening again, So stop right there. I'm sure if you're not up to speed, what we're talking about is obviously the leaks, that the crime scene photos and stuff like that. That's what they're talking about because that happened at Baldwin's office. Obviously, the two defense counsels is Rosie and Baldwin. Rosie's the lead attorney, and Baldwin is the co-counsel. All right, getting back into it. Let me grab this real quick because I know I'll get behind. Gail Hurd, good to see you. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much, Gail, for the $5. You are so awesome. Support really helps. Okay, if you're just coming in, we are reading the transcripts. We just started here. I'm on page 8 of 29. We'll try to run through this pretty quickly. Okay, back to Baldwin. And we can take directives from the court. We can, we're locking down every single thing on Delphi. It's in a dedicated room. So obviously he's talking about we're going to seal the room, make sure nobody can get into the office and get into confidential items such as crime scene photos. So back to the quote, we put locks on our conference room, or the war room where this guy my friend went in and did this without my knowledge. And no document, whether it's benign or something super, like a crime scene photo, is ever going to be left alone for a single solitary second ever again. So, I'm hoping that that can be something that the court, can say, all right, that's fine. And let's get on with the trial. But I'll shut up now. And then the court says, anything, Nick? So, Prosecutor McLeland says, Judge, I guess my plan today was give the court a summary of the investigation. I've got witnesses here and exhibits to present that go towards the investigation. I'm more than happy to hand those over to the defense. I know it may harm the investigation, but I think it would be important that the court hears these things. I guess the heart of it, and then something inaudible, investigation, I think it's important. I think the importance of you hearing it is outweighed by that. And so I have those things. I'm concerned that the leak is not just a one-time leak. The evidence that we have shows it is an ongoing leak. However, it's being done. It's just what's next. That's I have an issue. What's next? I mean, I spent the past 17 days investigating this day and night when I should have been focused on preparing for the trial. And when I say night and day, I mean phone calls at 2 a.m., 3:30 a.m., night and day. And so that's where I'm at, Judge. Again, I'm an officer of the court. I'm reporting to the court what I know, and that's kind of where I see my role. So then the court says, okay. And then now it's Mr. Rosie. You know, this is starting to scream due process to me. I'm not well. I haven't seen any of these exhibits, and I don't know really, frankly, I don't know anything about any of this. And I'm not distancing myself from Mr. Baldwin. I'm just saying I have no connection with any of these people. Okay. And the idea that somehow the prosecutor is going to get to roll out a bunch of statements and exhibits and, testimony without us having any forewarning or any idea, any way of scrutinizing that seems a little outside the boundaries of due process to me. Plus, again, I get back to what is the relevance to what is going on in this case. Why are we going to use an open courtroom to air an ancillary matter? It's a new word to me. It's not really connected in any way at this point to the proceedings that are ongoing, whether it's the Franks issue or anything of that nature. And I will tell you this, I am prepared to show the court this. I would rather do it in private. This problem has been a problem from the very beginning. I have 10 pages of deposition transcript in the file from my deposition. Our deposition that I took from Trooper Holman in this case, and in that deposition, he talks openly about how there were crime scene leaks from the very beginning. Unequivocal crime scene leaks, and that as soon as the crime occurred, there were investigating information that had been released. Because there were lay people that were part of the search people, and the implication is, and I've got the transcript, is that those people that found those girls started to essentially disseminate or distribute information, and law enforcement essentially tried to catch up with them. But it was really too late, as you might expect. So I'm going to pause right there. That what comes to mind there is the David Erskine text. I'm sure if you're familiar with Delphi and been following it for years, that was obviously some text messages were leaked. David was part of the search party. He was one of the first groups that found the girls. And then there was, I don't know if it was, I think it was maybe through Facebook chat, but either way, it was some chat between some friends that's close to the family. And anyway, that's some of the things that were talked about was what they saw at the scene. Not too in depth in detail, but we've talked about that before. But yeah, that's obviously what they're referring to as the leaked text. Let me get caught up on chat here too. Allison Wood, oh, that's so sweet. Chris is a good man. Thank you so much for the $10. I do as much as I can to give back. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time, but I really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to be with us. All right, let me get back to that. I'm going to find my spot here. Okay. Okay, once it gets in the hands of the public, it's too late. He told us that almost volunteered that information to me in the deposition. The second concern I have is that I think I shared with the court, just as an example, a week or two ago, somebody sends me a court TV, bit, and I can assure you I've never watched one of those bits on this case. I don't even know if I've ever really watched court TV. Maybe back when Simpson was ongoing. O.J. Simpson court. O.J. Simpson? Wow. I don't know. And in that bit, Barbara McDonald is talking. 2 different occasions, she mentioned how she's getting information from investigators on the ground that were at the crime scene. Now, we can all draw implications about that, but most importantly, it is corroborated by the fact that she was holding in her hand documents that I know to be directly related to the Purdue report. I mean, I saw the pictures. I know where those came from. And if you know, the point here is, I'm going to say this is maybe a little loosely, but forgive me. I don't care. I don't care that all this stuff is out there because it's been out there for 5 or 6 years. Which is true. I don't have time. He doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to sit, and so he's talking about Richard Allen, to sit and try to marshal all of this stuff while this case is ongoing because there's no end to it. But the point is that the court needs to have some context that this is nothing new. I'm super. I lost sleep over the fact that there's a man who's dead that I don't even know. Oh, they're referring to obviously the guy that took his life because of the crime scene leaks. Frankly, Andy doesn't know, and it's tragic. I don't know what life circumstances he had or what surrounded this. None of this information has been shared with us. But at the end of the day, what's going on out in the cyber world and in the public, as you might expect in this case, of this magnitude that's been publicized for 6 years, was beyond our control before we ever got involved. And some of that is. It's a valid argument. I agree. Now, Baldwin, the co-counsel for the defense. There's even a guy in Florida who says the guy in Texas who leaked all this stuff has received from a disgruntled Carroll County employee a whole file filled with stuff and photos included. And I haven't seen these photos that were leaked. I don't know what they are, I mean, if this could be set for a formal hearing in the future where we could have a chance to do it the right way, then that's one thing. But, to go in there and we don't have any way to counteract anything, if you know what it is, I can, okay, I know what that is, or I don't know what that is. And it's, in the meantime, we can, I don't know, this is the lowest point in my career right now. Because somebody did what they did to me. And I, that has nothing to do with Richard Allen. And the court responds, it certainly does not. Baldwin continues. Richard Allen needs to have counsel here, so I just don't want to go in there and not be able to fight back with evidence that we or witnesses that we have counteract whatever they claim that they have. So, and then it looks like the court cuts them off maybe. All right, so here's the court responding. Okay, here are my thoughts in no particular order. Oh dear. I don't know how many folks are out there, and I certainly don't wish to air publicity to the world the concerns that I have about this matter. My intent in having this hearing was to go through some of the pleadings that we have not yet decided. So I was going to start with reminding everybody about the decorum order, reminding everybody why we're here, to shut up, etc., etc. There have been reports to my sheriff about disruptive people, and I will remind people if they are disruptive, they will be removed. And my sheriff is fully prepared to execute arrest if necessary. Because I know we've seen in other hearings people have been disruptive and hateful. So under the rules, under the canons of the judicial conduct, I'm required to advise people within the room that the media is here and they are filming. They're doing pool coverage. So there's only 2 cameras in the courtroom and everybody's going to get coverage from that. And then I want to talk about the pleadings. Defendant filed a verified motion for immediate transfer of custody. The state filed its response. The motion, again, has a lot of inaccuracies and some speculation. And it has been refuted ably, and I think by the affidavits that have been submitted by the state, I am going to deny the motion. The defendant then filed a motion for broadcasting order. The state filed its response. Your motion's overbroad. It's got a lot of irrelevant verbiage in it, and I am required to consider individual requests for hearings. So I will, if the media wishes to have an individual request submitted. They know fully well how to do that, and I provided to the council all of those requests that I've gotten so far for this hearing. So if you want to file them for particular hearings, you're certainly welcome to do that. But the media is all over this, and they're not. They know how to do this. All right, I'm going to take a sip here real quick, guys. We got almost 250 people in here. Thank you guys so much. If you can, please hit that like button. We're about halfway into it, and then I've got so much more. I had a whole show prepared that had nothing to do with this, and this got released like less than an hour ago. So, all right. So now the court says hearing by hearing. Rosie says, okay. Court responds, yeah. Mr. Rosie, all right, okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what, and it looks like the court interrupts maybe. Court responds, the state filed its motion for leave of court to subpoena the third-party records. I think that was directed again to the DOC, Department of Corrections. I clearly can't grant that. I'm going to grant the defense's motion to quash. But if he continued to raise his medical and mental health in pleadings, that's fair game. Then for that to be provided to the state, you have also filed, Mr. McLeland, a motion for future pleadings and files to be sealed prior to being released to the public. I've not gotten a response from the defense. Mr. Rosie responds, can I speak on that? The court says, sure. Rosie responds, I think it's important to note, we've had the discussion come up before. There was basically, we decided, okay, we're done sealing stuff. We're going to make it public. Before it filed that Frank's brief, I had a long conversation with court reporter Karen Allen over in Delphi because I wasn't sure about Allen or Roller. I always wanted to call her Karen. Okay, interesting. McLeland responds, Allen. Mr. Rosie. Karen Allen, because I wasn't sure about the mechanics of how all this stuff was moving from Delphi to your office, and I know that you had set up some kind of website or something that people could access. And I was under the understanding in speaking with Mrs. Allen, and that's not Kathy Allen, that's, I'm assuming, a reporter. I'm not blaming her for anything, but that when we file these things that we're going from them and then we're hitting a button. We're filing with Carroll County. They were hitting enter. Or maybe she's a clerk. I'm not sure. Karen. Let me know in chat. Karen Allen sounds maybe like a clerk at the court or something. Anyway. And they were sending it to you, and you were essentially filtering the stuff, or at least you were seeing it before it became public. She says, the court, nope.
Rosie responds. And so that's the way in talking with her, that's the way I understood the mechanics, which I think is what happened to a pleading the other day. From what I understand, we filed something you either put in the queue. I think there's anyway, I tried to do some homework on that, and that's what and then Baldwin comes in. I was part of one of those conversations, and and then that's what she said. I don't know if that's just edited out. Then the court, so does that need a hearing? I'm happy to have a hearing on that. I don't have a problem with that. Rosie responds, well, I don't really. I guess I'm just telling you for context. That's what Baldwin comes in. I mean, could be there. I mean, could there be a happy medium of we file it's confidentially, and then so the judge then gets a new chance to review it first? Because that's what we thought was going on anyway, but it's not what's going on. The court responds, no, it's been filed confidentially if you mark it as such. Baldwin replies, I know. Yeah, I know that now. Then the court. I had my staff mark the memorandum confidential after it had been filed and disseminated to the public because the actual warrant was in there. And that's covered under a miscellaneous case number. I'm happy to have a hearing. Mr. Rosie responds, well, what is your ruling? I guess to make sure I understand, I don't want to fight about something that we don't need to argue about. Court says, I haven't ruled on that. Rosie responds, okay. Court says, you haven't filed a response, and then Rosie responds, yeah. Okay, let me take one more sip here. It looks like this is a big one. Okay, the court then says, my question is, do we need a hearing on that, or do you wish to file a response? The Frank's motion clearly needs a ruling, and I'm working on that. The motion exhibits are about 1,500 pages, and there are hours and hours and hours of interviews that have been made available. Wow. That my IT staff has now cleaned to make sure they're okay. We've already talked about that. And then, that brings us to my concerns that I raised with all of you on our phone call. And I write everything out. And this is what I intend to say in open court. I have concerns regarding the defense team and the totality of the circumstances surrounding your representation of Mr. Allen. Candidly, my concerns began at our hearing on November 22nd of last year. Mr. McLeland filed a motion for gag order, where we were in chambers, and you assured me, gentlemen, we don't want media in our lives. We will not try this case in the media. So clearly she's not too excited. I think obviously this is kind of referring to the Frank's motion. If I recall from what people have been saying, it seems like that was released on the Indy.gov case file, where any public official can grab that and release it to the public, and that should have been sealed. And clearly that was kind of one of the three strikes. She wasn't happy about that because obviously it contained many details that were unknown as far as the crime scene and stuff like that. So back to the quote. And then less than 2 weeks later, you assured me an undated press release that contained an awful lot of information that would not normally be revealed. I don't know. I think you knew or should have known those were potentially violative of Rule 3.6 of the Rules of Professional Responsibility. But it is that press release that prompted me to issue the order December 2nd, granting the gag order until further hearing. April 18th of this year, you filed a notice of tort claim against the Department of Correction. You stated in that notice that it was your intent to pursue our client's claims against you. The full amount of damages sought on behalf of my client is unknown. I don't know how you could do that in representing Mr. Allen in a criminal matter and then launch off into a civil matter. I think that's inappropriate. May of this year, we were notified by the state of Brandon Woodhouse arrest and the subsequent discovery of your work product, and I think it was outline that you created for yourselves with the discovery. It's pretty detailed. I don't know if that's the right word. That apparently happened in December of last year, and that was not revealed to anybody, not shared with the court. It wasn't shared with you, although apparently you guys knew about what was going on. Interesting. Getting a little heated here. Mr. Baldwin replies, he didn't know. Uh-oh. The court responds, you knew. Mr. Baldwin, okay, so Baldwin's saying he didn't know, but I did know. Interesting. Then the court replies, so then Mr. Woodhouse gets arrested. And here we are, grossly negligent to email that to the wrong Brad. Your pleadings on the safekeeping order contain inaccuracies and falsehoods. That was proven in the hearing that was conducted in June. Evidence presented by the state clearly demonstrated the falsity of your claims, and that was very troubling to me. And then the last couple of weeks that we have been dealing with, the state provided you discovery. Now, I think with this Mr. Woodhouse in the email is, and let me know in chat if I got this wrong, but I believe what they're talking about in this is that an email got sent out. So, Bradley Rosie, Andrew Baldwin. So Baldwin was supposed to send an email to Bradley Rosie, but ended up sending it to this Mr. Woodhouse, I believe, and it was confidential items, and so that's kind of what they're talking about. All right, let me take a sip. Okay, that has been severely compromised. We now have an ongoing investigation. I'm not going to call it a criminal investigation. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly being investigated by the state of Indiana. Everyone involved has sought counsel, including you, Mr. Baldwin. You had an attorney enter a written appearance this morning. I don't want to get into the investigation candidly. You are the constitutional authority for the state of Indiana. If you choose to pursue it, that is up to you. If you choose to abandon it, that is clearly up to you. I'm glad to hear you have cooperated, but Mr. Baldwin's attorney has clearly shared. I don't know if you've seen his pleading. Now, prosecution McLeland jumps in here. I saw it, Judge. Yes, I got it kind of late. He emailed us, and then the court replies, okay. Prosecutor McLeland says, I saw that it was filed on the way here. Now back to the court. Well, yeah, so he clearly shared it in his pleading down to the fact that an individual has committed self-harm. He included the fact that you left materials all over the conference room table accessible to anyone, and this is a friend of yours apparently you have consulted with on this case. So again, it's up to you if you wish to pursue that. I'm looking at the totality of the circumstances. You know, when I look at a suppression, the case law requires me to look at the totality of circumstances, and that's what I'm doing. And it pains me to say this, but the totality of these circumstances demonstrates gross negligence and incompetence on the part of the defense team. I am unsatisfied with your representation with Mr. Allen. I'm gravely concerned about his rights to have a competent non-negligent representation. He currently doesn't have that right now because what you have demonstrated is negligence and incompetence. Now I am sharing my thoughts with you privately. I don't want to say this in open court. I would encourage you to talk privately about what you wish to do. I don't want this coming out. It is not where we need to be with this case, but I will. But you don't know that. You have just shown, but you don't know that. You have just now been made aware of my concerns and where I'm landing. So if you wish to have a private conversation, I would encourage you to do so. I don't believe your client is here yet. No, he's not. Clearly, you'll need to speak with him as well. Baldwin says, I'm not good at reading between the lines. And then the court responds, you're a lawyer. That's what you do for a living. Oof. It's getting heated here. Mr. Baldwin, when you say you have a private conversation, are you talking the four of us? The court responds, I'm talking about you. I'm not accusing the state of gross incompetence and negligence. I'm finding gross competence and negligence with you. And that's referring to Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin says, okay, and then Rosie jumps in, forgive me. Go ahead. No. Rosie replies, I mean, obviously reading the tea leaves here, interesting words, what you're giving us a chance to do is bow out gracefully, if you will, if that's the right term. Is there a scenario where the court would accept if I stayed in the case? I mean, I'm a team player. I'm not the kind of guy that just bail out on somebody just for the sake of doing it. But I think it's obvious that, he can speak differently, but I'm not as connected to some of you, this most recent circumstances as he is. Mr. Allen is in a situation where he's going to have counsel that's, if he has new counsel, it's going to take them a year to get up to speed with the depth of information that continues to come in. And so I think that his Sixth Amendment rights matter. And I'm probably the one that can at least move this thing forward with some sense of judicial economy. I don't like it. That's not what I intended to do when I came in here today. But that would be kind of a worst case scenario on our side, I guess. And so is that an option that the court would entertain? Now, before I move on, I don't see a reason. I mean, I would be okay with this. I mean, if it was clearly with the leaks being on Baldwin's side, he's the co-counsel, Rosie's the lead. I could see, the punishment is that Baldwin has to go, and whatever, he gets a slap on the wrist as far as Rosie, but, really it happened at Baldwin's office as far as this goes. And then he picks up, a co-counsel who he can get up to speed. I don't see that being a big issue, but some may disagree. But the court says no, she will not entertain that. So Rosie responds, so basically what you're saying is you guys either quit on your own accord or you make me fire you. That's what, and then the court responds, no. I'm saying to you that this is what I plan to say in court on the record when we convene at 2:00. Rosie, well, so is this the culmination of that you're removing us from the case? The court says, I will, based on what I've just shared with you. Rosie responds, okay, well, I just want to make sure and then the court says, and I'm just giving you the opportunity to have a conversation, which how do you want that to go? I don't want to do this, but I will if I have to. Then Baldwin jumps in. Should we bow out gracefully, as Brad says? How? Would we even have a hearing? How would that go? Because if we're out of the case, then Rosie responds, then you're going to go ahead and rule on a bunch of stuff without lawyers in the room. The court responds, no, I would not do that. If you decide that your best course of action is to file a motion to withdraw, you can do that today, and I'll send Mr. Allen back to the Department of Corrections after you've had a chance to speak with him. Baldwin replies, would that happen before the hearing or after the hearing? The court says, your motion to withdraw would happen before the hearing. Baldwin responds, okay, that's what I wanted. Yeah. The court says, yeah, because he has rights, and I don't want those rights compromised by having a hearing with him not having counsel. I assume if you choose to withdraw, that his financial situation hasn't changed, and he will still be entitled to a court-appointed counsel. Can't imagine he has the ability at this point to hire counsel. I don't know that. Baldwin responds, Brad and I need to go talk. The court says, yes, you do. Thank you, gentlemen. Prosecutor McLeland, yep, thank you, Judge. Off the record, on the record. Thank you, Jody. Court reporter, you're welcome. Court says, okay, yes. Back to Rosie. All right, so obviously, I'm assuming they were taking some time to speak privately about what to do next. Everything going good in chat here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to run through this. We're about 3/4 of the way done. Mr. Rosie, all right. So obviously, we're kind of trying to figure out how to address this issue with very short notice, very little notice. The first thing we did is really talk to the client. The court, Rosie responds, our client is a big part of this, the biggest part of this. And he has communicated to us that he does not want us to withdraw from this case. He wants us to continue with his representation. He understands, I think, that he's not the gatekeeper, or nor does he have the authority to really force the court to do that. He would like to say that on the record, we asked him if that's what he wanted to do. We suggested maybe we would do it in chambers. It seems a little bit of a difficult position to put a man who's accused but not been found guilty. Put him in a courtroom and have him, have to speak in these circumstances with 15 minutes notice. Andy and I'm going to speak for myself. I'll let him speak for himself. I'm going to file a motion to withdraw. I don't want to do it, but I don't think I have a choice at this point. The options I've been given without any notice by the court really are either I withdraw or I'm going to be publicly shamed, and that's the way I see this. And I think that public shaming is there's not only a professional element to that, I think there's a personal aspect to that too. But when the media is but when the media is teed up, so we're all excited because obviously this was going to be a pretty big proceeding. We show up here today with the court having told us that we're going to conduct some business that somehow bleeds over into a forced recognition, or whatever you want to. However, you characterize this that I don't feel like I have any other choice professionally. I have a life beyond this courtroom, beyond this case, and I have a family too. And I have a law practice. But I think we've been given some notice of what we were actually, if this would have been framed in pleading format or some formal disciplinary claim, which there's a process for that in our business, then we could have come in here today with the opportunity to refute some of those things that you clearly had, thought through and prepared before we got here. And we didn't have that opportunity. And it's the idea that I'm going to have to go in here in open courtroom and essentially defend myself against claims that I don't agree with without any notice and without any opportunity, I think is unfair. But I also have some common sense, and me going in there, standing my ground because my client wants me to, is just going to make things worse for him. And so I'm going to withdraw my appearance. I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to go down to my car. I'm going to call my staff, and I'm going to have them prepare a motion. And I'm going to withdraw my appearance. But I'm doing it because I don't think I have any other choice professionally. Not because I want to, not because my client wants me to, and I respect the court has an opinion, but we're professionals and we can disagree. So the court responds, of course. Now Mr. Rosie jumps in, and I'm extremely, I'd say frustrated, probably a soft word, with the idea that we showed up today without any real opportunity to prepare for any of this. And I just think it's improper, and that's where I am, and that's my position. The court responds, well, I think we talked about it when you asked for a disqualification, and I indicated on our phone conversation I'm inclined to do that. Rosie responds, it was a phone conversation that was not on record, and then some follow-up emails. The court says true. Mr. Rosie responds, there's an informality to that. So obviously I'm no expert when it comes to law, but that does kind of sound unfair, but I don't know how that stuff works. And the court even actually confirms that. She says true, which is interesting. So Rosie says there's an informality to that, and the court says true. So that's kind of interesting. She acknowledges that. Mr. Rosie, and you have also said that you hadn't even done any research, and you hadn't, had time to talk to your senior judge and all these other things, and he hasn't filed a pleading with the court either. The court, no, I'm doing this on my motion. Let me take a sip. We're about done here. They should have known. Yeah, there's a lot of knows. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Rosie, or Mr. Rosie. And I'm a lawyer who practices in a lot of courtrooms, and I've been through some disqualification actions. In 20 years, I've never had a disciplinary complaint in my life. That's been confirmed, if you will. But I've seen lawyers disqualified, and there is a process for that, and that's not this. With all due respect, where you walk into somebody's office, a judge's office, and then read a prepared statement to you, and essentially that statement is indictment or indictment. I don't know why I'm troubling with that word. On my professional, activities, that you're handed, essentially a sheet of paper with two options, and one of them is I'm going to go out here and shame you, or you can quit. So you can understand how upset that would make any lawyer, and I don't think it's the right way to handle this from a due process standpoint. So I have no choice but to, withdraw my appearance, because I'm not going to go in there and take a public shaming without having any notice of it. That's where I am with that. Then we got Mr. Baldwin. I'm in the same withdrawing. I mirror what he said. I do appreciate giving us the advance notice. If there is some appreciation for that, I do appreciate that. Beyond that, I wanted to take this and finish it out. I'm stunned. I don't know what to say, so I'll just say I'm moving to withdraw orally. Court responds, okay. Mr. Rosie, is the court going to generate some further instructions on what to do with all the discovery that we have? And then the court responds, I already have. All right, last couple pages. Rosie, all of this information and the court responds, there's an order. I granted the state's protective order on the discovery. Mr. Rosie, no, I'm talking about my possession of all of this information. Am I to take it out to the trash can? Am I supposed to wait for another attorney? Is the court going to give us some guidance on how to move all this information from one law office to another? So obviously he's asking, what do we do with all our discovery and all this stuff that they've been, their documents regarding this case? Court responds, I did. Rosie, to another? The court, when I granted the state's protective order, I think it's the last paragraph of that protective order, directs you to return it all to the state of Indiana, all the copies, all of whatever you gave them. They are required under that order to return to you. Rosie, at the conclusion of this case, the court or your representation. Mr. Rosie, I know what order you're talking about. I read the order before I came today. The court says, okay. Rosie responds, so we're supposed to just take everything back, give it to the state, and then just retain our work product until somebody asks for it? Court responds, your work product is your work product. I mean, I'd hope that you would share that with a successor counsel. I would hope that you would help a successor counsel just with the transfer of all that information, because that's in your client's best interest to do that, but that's entirely up to you. That's your work product that you have developed. I mean, clearly the discovery is required to go back to the state. So obviously she's talking about any notes and work that they did on the side. They can choose to either help the successors or not. Okay, let's get caught up in chat here. I think we're got up. Okay, I got 300 people in here. Thank you guys so much. We're almost at the end of this here, and then I've got so much more. Wasn't even prepared for this to come out. Okay, where did I end with this? Mr. Rossi, do you want me to make a record with this? I mean, I think it's appropriate to let the court. I think it's appropriate that the court let him speak into the record his thoughts, unless the court just accepts that as noticed that those are his opinions. The court responds, well, you wouldn't lie to me about that. Rosie responds, I would not lie to you about anything. The court responds, so of course, that's your representation. That's what he would say if he were brought in here. I can't imagine the Department of Correction being comfortable bringing him into my office. I would not be comfortable having him in my office. So they're talking about bringing Richard Allen in and him, speaking on the record, I guess, in some fashion. Mr. Rosie responds, would the court also be inclined to mark as an exhibit the prepared statement so that it's part of the record? The court responds, I have a record rolling. Rosie says, okay. The court responds, yes. Mr. Baldwin, so we're going to leave, I guess, and you're going to, how is this? You're just going to get up on that bench and say, and then the court, I will just indicate to Mr. McLeland, the prosecutor, going to be in there with Mr. Luttrell, which is now his new co-counsel. And I will just say we had a turn of events and defense counsel is withdrawing, and that's all I'm going to say. And of course, that's pretty much what happened. Mr. Baldwin, can you wait for us to get out of here? Poor guys. Court says, of course. And we can have you. I don't know where you're parked at. We have a hearing set for October 31st that I'd like to keep as trial setting and appointment of new counsel. And if you can, get things together by that date to return to the prosecutor McLeland, that would be good. Otherwise, if with your permission, I will give successor counsel your contact information. Both Baldwin and Rosie both agree. Say okay. Court says, where are you parked? Rosie responds, nice to meet you. Sorry to inaudible. So I guess they're Rosie and the co-counsel for prosecutor meeting, I guess. Then Baldwin responds, just right out there in the front of the building. I mean, there's a parking lot. There's a little parking lot right in front of the building. I don't know what. Court responds, everybody's in the courtroom, so I don't think that there's anybody out in the hallways. Rosie responds, I'm going to get my staff member. I'm going to have her. I don't need any. We'll rendezvous at some point and try to get the stuff back. Prosecutor McGleeland, okay, that's fine. Between Steve and I and Sarah and you. Rosie says, okay, we will get all of it. That's fine. Done. That's either Sarah. Thank you. And final thing, thank you. This concludes the proceedings had in camera on October 19, 2023 in the cause. And I, Jody Williams, official reporter for Allen Superior Court, hereby certified that I took the transcribed from the electronic reporting equipment all of the proceeding had in camera on October 19th. And she signed it and verified it. And that is it. So what do you guys think? Like I said, try to be respectful. So I'm not going to speak too much on it because I've got so much more that I wanted to go in today. But kind of interesting. My opinion, nothing too much shocking. I mean, we kind of had an idea what happened behind closed doors. But yeah. So let me move that here. And let me get caught up in chat, and then we're going to move on to part 2. Because like I said, I've got a whole show that was built. Like I said, I wasn't ready for any of that stuff. Let me get there. Oh, Livia, thank you so much for the $4. Thank you so much. You are so sweet. And now we're going to move on to 3 strikes and you're out. That's kind of, like I said, I do feel bad for Rosie a little bit, because he was lead counsel. The crime scene photo leaks on Baldwin's watch. So I could see them letting go of Baldwin. He taking the fall for that. And, they just get a co-counsel and save a bunch of taxpayer money. Because literally the court date would have been they would be starting to prepare opening statements next month. So it's kind of crazy that all that has turned. But it's going to play out how it's going to play out. And yeah. Yeah, Mindy says, I think the judge hosed herself. There are procedures she should have followed. It did say she did kind of confirm that it was kind of a, I don't know if ambush would be the right word, but obviously that's what the defense is saying. But like I said, I don't want to get too much into that because I feel like that divides the chat quite a bit, and I hate to talk about that as far as the defense and Judge Gold, because I feel like it's really divided the community, and I think it just sucks. I think obviously it just hurts everybody, the families of the victims. They've been waiting countless years to get some kind of closure, and then this happens, and it just sucks, and it's terrible. Oh my goodness, the Captain Howdy. Good to see you as always. Always honor to have you in here, buddy. I hope you're doing well. I hope you have a wonderful upcoming holiday with the family and stuff. And all right, let's move on to what I originally had set up for you guys. So, like I said, I'm sure you saw my thumbnail. We will get to that. That'll kind of be the prize at the end. But I wanted to kind of shift gears and talk about some of the witness statements. And I just kind of came across some interesting things. And it's going to involve you guys in the chat as well. But let's go ahead and get into that. And like I said, I uncovered some interesting things. I may not be the first, but I haven't seen any other videos kind of talk about some particular things. So we're just going to go ahead and get into it. Let me take a sip and then we'll just jump in here. So I'm not going to read the probable cause affidavit. We've already spent what oh my gosh, spent over an hour just reading that. Goodness. But anyway, so we're going to talk about the witnesses that saw the vehicle. And I noticed there was some very interesting connections. So we're just going to go through in a timeline order of the witnesses that saw vehicles or the suspect and whatnot, and we're going to put it together. And I found some very interesting things I think you guys might find interesting. So, starting with male witness 1 at 2:10 p.m. This is one of the witnesses that saw a vehicle parked at the CPS building. His description is that he saw a a purple PT Cruiser / small SUV. He wasn't sure, exactly what it was, but felt like it was something similar to that kind of build. He also notes that he noticed that it was backed in. So that's one witness. Then we move into male witness number 2, which is Terry. At 2:28, he also sees what's called, what he claims is a dark smart car. And he used the description as it's parked odd. So kind of confirming what the previous male witness claimed. And moving on, and this is kind of the area I'm sure you guys know, and I'll have to pull up Google Earth, but here is obviously what a 2016 Ford Focus, black Ford Focus, which I had a buddy that had a Ford Focus, I think it was 2004, 2005. Obviously, the models have changed throughout the years. This one's kind of interesting because it's kind of a more of a hatchback type deal, where the other ones are more of kind of just like a compact, regular vehicle. So they kind of changed it, this model. And this is kind of where they saw it at the old CPS building. Now, this is where things get a little interesting. Now we bring on our next witness, one of our female witnesses, Betsy, we'll just BB, at 2:15. So in between the two male witnesses, she sees, now in the original affidavit, or probable cause, excuse me, it doesn't describe what she saw. It only says that she saw a suspicious car backed in. But then obviously with the Frank's motion, we learned that she supposedly described a 1965 Ford Comet. And I made some notes here. It's curious that this is one that her father used to own. And we'll get to that. We'll circle back to that. But she exactly describes the same thing as it being backed in. So if you look at all the notes here, they're almost all identical. female Betsy and the first male both literally use the quote backed in. Male number 2, Terry, he claims it's parked oddly. But the only difference is obviously a Ford Comet is much different from the other two vehicles that the other two witnesses described. But what's interesting, and obviously I didn't realize this until they had released, when they did that massive document drop when, I guess, courtesy of the murder sheet, there was all these documents sealed, and it basically had the probable cause, but it had a little bit more details that were left out in the original, and then obviously it released the names of the witnesses. And what's interesting is in this newer document of probable cause, where this would have been redacted, where it says Betsy and Terry, because when I read it, when you read the original one, it makes it seem like it's the two males that are corroborating, and they both drew diagrams, but it's actually Betsy and Terry. Now, this is important because they both describe seeing a vehicle parked at the CPS building, and they both did a diagram, and their diagrams are very similar. Obviously, the only issue is Betsy claims to have seen a 1965 Ford Comet, but yet the other male witness describes a dark smart car. So there could be a couple of scenarios. One, either a purple PT Cruiser or a small SUV backed into the CPS building at 210, and then left, and then somebody with a Ford Comet came in, and actually Ford did not make a comment. It's actually Mercury, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So it's actually Ford did not make them. It was, even though Ford obviously is, offshoot of Mercury. It's the same parts, but it's actually a Mercury comment. So either you had a PT Cruiser back in at 210, then leave, a few minutes later, then this Ford Comet comes and literally backs into this similar area, and then it leaves, and then you have a third car that's similar to the first description come and back in oddly at 228. So keep that in mind, because it is kind of weird that, and I doubt that's what happened. I think the same car was sitting there, but we'll get to that. But here is a look at all the vehicles that are described here. And so, and I've shown this before, but like I said, I've got some new stuff to show you guys. So obviously here's a PT Cruiser. It's got that kind of short model, kind of hatchback type. Obviously smart car, kind of similar build. And then the Ford Focus. It's got that hatchback. And then we've got kind of sitting, obviously these three vehicles could be mistaken for each other easily, depending on the view. And then you have this kind of out of place Mercury Comet that this Betsy Blair claims to have seen. And here's a satellite image of actually Richard Allen's home taken in, I think this was taken in 2020. But if you look at it this from afar, it's probably far because you guys, some of you are on the phone. I mean, that just from afar, that does look like a PT Cruiser. I mean, if you're just kind of looking back, I mean, because they're much shorter. And so I could easily see that being mistaken for a PT Cruiser. I know we've kind of mentioned that. So if we look here, almost everything lines up except for Betsy's Ford Comet. Everything else lines up with the timeline and everything. So here is one of my theories. is it possible that Betsy uh, saw a Mercury comet driving past? So when she was leaving, is it possible that she had seen a Mercury comet driving by, but not parked, and did also see a car parked at the thing, but because she saw this Mercury comet driving by, since her father owned it, and I talked to Steve about this. Obviously, former detective, done a lot of interviews, worked with witnesses, and could it just be something that stuck out in her mind that she confused what she saw driving past her as what was parked in the CPS building? Let me know in the chat what you guys think. It's possible. I mean, we kind of tend to fill in memories with, we mix them up, kind of like, yeah. So moving on. Then, obviously, I mentioned earlier, she mentions clearly in a statement that it was a 1965 Ford Comet, but obviously Ford does not make the Comet. Mercury did. And here are all the, generations that Mercury had built them since the 1960s until, looks like all the way up till the late 1977. They had 6 generations. But definitely much different from these other cars that are being described. And so here's my other theory. So I got a question for the chat, and 10 points for the one that guesses this right, or gets this. So if you look at all the details in here, and just look at this paragraph here that is in the box, what is one word that relates to Richard Allen's vehicle that's in her description? So I'm going to wait for chat. I'm just curious. Does anyone see in this red box, what is one thing, just one word that relates to Richard Allen's vehicle? I'm going to go ahead and take a sip here. Obviously, there's a delay, so comment it. Yeah, it is a Mercury. But does anyone see the one word that relates to Richard Allen's vehicle? I'm going to hover over it. 10 points. 10 brownie points. Anybody? Yes, Karen. Right there. Ford. This got me thinking. Just kind of outside the box. Got me thinking. Ford. Exactly. She said Ford Comet, even though obviously Mercury makes it. So is it possible that she did actually see the Ford logo, and that's why she called it the Ford Comet, even though Ford didn't make them, even though it is a Ford brand? It's Mercury. Is that reason? Just let me know what you guys think. But brownie points to Karen. That's awesome. I see a couple other people said Ford as well, Darlene. But could it be possible? And then if you break that down, almost everything matches up, pretty closely as far as details, just other than the actual description of the comment. But I thought it was kind of interesting that she said Ford. Could it be possible she saw the Ford logo? Just kind of thinking outside the box. So here's something even more interesting that I uncovered. So here is, I wish I could blow this up. Okay, so now we know that the Hoover Harv store had a camera. The Hoover Harv store used to be located right here, and this is where the camera was facing. And I took all the details of which direction each witness was going when they passed the camera and when they leave a description of the car, because some of them arrive and leave, and I noticed something that there's a commonality. So obviously we have Richard Allen that's supposedly caught at 127 going westbound, arriving. We got Betsy arriving at 146 eastbound, so she's going this way. She's caught on camera. Betsy, then later on, leaves at 214. And she is again, because she parked at the Mears parking lot. So she would have been caught on the camera coming and leaving. Now notice, when she's leaving, she sees a vehicle at the CPS building. Now, in between that, we have Mel, which is Terry. Wait, no, this is not Terry. No, the other one. This is Wesley. He's not caught on camera, so I think he came in and parked somewhere around in here and then left the same way he came in, so he never passed the camera. But he did come in both ways, and as he was leaving, he saw the purple SUV. Then we go to Terry. When he's leaving at 228 westbound, he sees a dark smart car. And then female, which is Sarah, at 357 eastbound passing by, is when then she sees somebody obviously walking muddied and possibly bloody, depending on where you sit. But there is something, there is a connection right here. And 10 brownie points for those that notice something. Let me see which way. This is probably the best way to do it. Does someone see a connection about when they actually see the cars? Let me know in the chat. I'm going to leave it up there for a second. I wish I would have moved the Mel. Keep in mind, the Mel was leaving. So do you see a connection when people see the car? There is a connection. Let me know. I've almost said it. But does anyone notice the only time that they mention a vehicle is at a certain time? I gotta wait because obviously there's a little bit of time gap. But I promise it's kind of interesting. Yes, D's got it. That's it. Notice the only time that it's mentioned that they see the vehicle. Yes, Darlene. Darlene's on it. Darlene's on it. So is D. Westbound. That is something I realized. Notice they never mention, besides obviously Richard Allen. Forget him. Betsy Blair arrives. She mentions nothing about seeing the vehicle. Mel only mentioned it when he's leaving, so he's going westbound. Betsy Blair, when she's leaving westbound, then mentions the car. Mel number 2, Terry, westbound, mentions the dark smart car. And then notice female Sarah, she's heading east, never mentions seeing the car, even though the car would have been there. So that means that clearly this car was parked in a way that if when you were coming to the trail from this direction, heading south, which would end up going eastbound, so we'll say southeast, when they're coming southeast, they clearly don't see it. So that means clearly there is something, obviously probably trees and foliage or whatever, blocking their view that they never see the vehicle when they're entering. But every witness that leaves had mentioned the description of the car. I thought that was really interesting. So that means either he parked the car probably right here, and I know this isn't huge, but I thought it was very interesting that no witness mentions seeing the vehicle as they're arriving from this way, which means it's put in a position. And then look how tiny, you can see my little diagram of the cars. It's supposed to be the front, that's the back. But look at the actual comparison of the actual size of a car. So look how tiny that thing is. So that little tiny thing would have been just like in here or here. So it just goes to show you that this car would have been hard to see, and clearly there was something obstructing the view of them coming this way, that they would only see it going this way, which tells me this person definitely knew that and was doing as much as possible to conceal the vehicle. But I got more. Um, Chris, you're a genius at this. I'm not a genius. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else has caught this before. I just been lucky to point it out. Um, Tom says she must know her cars to know it was a comment. Yeah, well, like I said, she mentioned that her father owned one. So, and I was talking with Steve that sometimes we relate to stuff, from our childhood. We're always relating stuff that we've grown up knowing. And obviously, if that was something maybe special to her, the comment, I think she did see a comet that day. But in my opinion, I think she probably saw a comet just driving by, maybe around the same time that she was passing this area, and then just got the two confused, just in my opinion. Because if not, then you'd have to go back to the original scenario that you would have all these cars coming and going and literally parking in the same spot where two of them look identical. It just a little weird, but anyway, I got much more, so just get started here. Marie, thank you so much. Like I said, I spent 2 days working on this. I've got a lot more, but thank you guys so much. It's always interesting to go back and look at old stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Okay, moving on to the next thing. Just checking chat here for a minute. Okay. All right. So now, next, make sure you guys can see this here. And it don't matter if you think Allison, or if you think Richard Allen's innocent, that's fine. We respect all opinions. All I'm trying to do is just break down the information we have. If you follow my channel, that is something that I try to stick with the evidence and facts. We do build some theories, but we try to base it off the information that we have. I try not to, alter things. We just try to go off what's available to us. All right. So let's just break down this interaction because I think this is very interesting. So I'm not going to read all of this, but as you guys remember, Allen did have an original statement where he did claim that he was there from 1:30 to 3:30. He parked at the Old Farm Bureau building, which is actually the CPS building. He even said that he saw 3 females. That is very key. He noted one was taller and had brown and black hair. He did not remember the descriptions. So he even gives a description of one of the girls. So he clearly mentions in his original that he saw 3 females, and even gives a description of one of them to a point. Then, so if we go with the original timeline, he was seen on camera at 1:27. He would have arrived at 1:30. Maybe was in the car, maybe gearing up. If you think he's guilty, then he was gearing up. Probably took a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Then he walked this little trail. And then at the same time, 3 juvenile witnesses, they had just gotten back from the trails, and they were at the Freedom Bridge, this little circle here. There's a bench, there's a couple of stones and stuff. And that's where they all met. And I say 140, this is approximate. It could be like anywhere from like 137 to 142, somewhere in there. So I'd just say 140. So we literally have 3 juveniles, and obviously Alan, all cooperating the same story, same interaction that happened. Then, on top of that, we have our one witness, Betsy Blair, who was driving under the freeway here on Hoosier Highway and would come circling around. Obviously, we've been talking about her. She's the Ford Comment witness. She sees 4 juvenile witnesses, so I'm assuming maybe the 3 girls were walking on the bridge, and maybe there was maybe one girl walking the other way, or maybe she just mistaken the 3 for 4 girls, Either way, she corroborates, and that's about the same exact timing. At this point, Alan would have been already starting to enter the trails. But now we have a 5th person that kind of corroborates this whole little scenario. And so now with the defense, they come up and say, well, in another interview, Richard Allen said that he actually arrived there at noon and left at 1:30. And so we'll get into that in just a minute. And we'll get to chat here in just a second. So now, like I said, we have the 3 juveniles, Richard Allen, and now Betsy Blair. So we have 5 people. And that means with all of this and with her arriving, we have 3 juveniles, 1 Betsy Blair witness, and Richard Allen. In total, we have 5 people all account for each other's statements, including, most importantly, Allen's original statement that he was there at the trail at 1:30. Obviously, he'd be arriving at the trails at about a little after 1:40. So if you think about the coincidence that would have to be, you would have 5 people all accounting for the same scenario. I mean, that's pretty big. So let's try to look at it from a different perspective. So the Hoosier Hardware Store camera is up here. Let's start with Richard Allen's home, which is at 1967 Whiteman Drive. This is his home. There's a couple ways you can get to the Monon Bridge. 2 routes that are pretty much the same time. The most optimal would probably be this one here. It just takes 6 minutes and it's only under 3 miles. Or you could go south and you would get up on the Hoosier Highway. It's 4.1 miles, but obviously since now you're on the Hoosier Highway, you can go a little faster. It would still take 6 minutes. So you have the 2 routes here that if he took, would get there in about the same time. Now, there would be one other route that he would take, and that route would be this way. I forget the road's name, but he could take this route here, and you would have to go all the way back and around. There's no faster route because you got the Deer Creek, you got private property. There's no way. This is, if you were going east past the Hoosier Highway, the only closest street or route you can go would be this route here. This route would take approximately 10 minutes. What's interesting is that obviously Allen's car was seen going westbound. So he did not take the eastbound, the quick optimal route from his home. Now you could say maybe he was coming from, something else, a prior engagement of something, but we'll look at Google Earth here in a minute. But Delphi is over here. If we look at a bigger map, everything north, east, south of this area is all farm. There might be 1 or 2 stores scattered throughout, but there's nothing. It's all farm for the most part. So I thought it was kind of interesting that he's coming from the westbound direction. And so moving on. So if he were to change his statement and say that he arrived at noon and left at 1:30, and let me take a sip here because I'm going to lose my voice. But here we go. If he arrived at noon and left at 1:30, it would make sense. So obviously he admits that he was at the CPS building. I don't think he changed his story on the second statement, although we don't know for sure, but I'm assuming he's kept where he parked. Would mean that obviously if you were going to leave, you would leave this way, because obviously that's the most optimal route to go home. It's only 6 minutes. And he was never seen on camera going eastbound because we have the camera here, remember. So obviously if he would have went eastbound, he would have been seen on camera. So if it would make sense if Alan left heading northwest, as that is the shortest and quickest route back home, he also clearly wasn't caught on camera. So I was just reading what I had here. That's what I just said. So this is the issue I have. Is if he's saying that he arrived there at noon and left at 1:30, how come his car is caught at exactly 1:27 heading westbound? So basically, if Alan is supposedly leaving the trails at 1:30, how could he be arriving at 1:27 caught on camera? That just wouldn't make any sense. And let me know if you guys have any arguments to that, and I will go back and look. But that wouldn't make any sense. You would obviously think if he was leaving at 1:30, he would go up, get on the Hoosier Highway, or just get this back street 6 minutes. And obviously he didn't go east because he wasn't caught on camera going east. He was only caught on camera once going west. So the only other scenario for argument on the other side of that is that he did just say he left at 1:30 and just headed up north and went west, and that a similar black Ford Focus just happened to show up at 1:27 just minutes before he supposedly left. And we're talking about Delphi. Delphi is not very big, so not say obviously it's not impossible, but how could he be arriving but yet leaving? It doesn't add up, in my opinion. So that's just my argument to that. And like I said, let me pull up Google Earth, and then I still got some more interesting stuff to show you guys. And then we'll recap if you came in here earlier. If you can, we almost got 400 people in here. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this. It really means the world to me. Please, if you could, smash that like button. But let me just show you guys. Oh God. Got the right thing here. Boop. Okay, take me there. But yeah, if you have an argument against it, I will look at it here in just a second. But so here is the map right here. So here's where the bridge is at. This is where he was caught on camera going westbound. So the only route he would go would be this way to get there. But as you see, as you can see, there's nothing. This is Delphi here. Like, this is Delphi, a very small town. If you look east, it's all farm. It's not like I don't know, maybe there's a Walmart supercenter somewhere out. Maybe, we've got what, Flora over here, so that's the next big town, and Camden up here. But the rest of this, I mean, what would be his purpose um, to be coming from that direction? My opinion, I think Alan came this way is that he was scoping the scene out. And I also think that he took this route because it's possible that maybe he stopped somewhere, because obviously this is just rural farmland. He could have parked over to the side and then geared up for what he was about to do. And obviously nobody would have been able to see him because it's super rural. And then he would have took the route, and then he would have been caught on the camera at 127. But if he was just going to go to the park, you would think, if anything, he would have never been caught on camera, because he would have entered this direction, parked at the CPS building, and left the way he came back, and would have never been seen on camera. Spiritual Genie, love your channel and your work. Thank you so much. I spend a lot of time on my PowerPoints because I always like to have presentations ready for you guys. I said, I'm not perfect. I get things wrong all the time. And if I do, please correct me in chat. We all make mistakes. But like I said, I'm trying to look at it from just the evidentiary and witness statements. And then just putting the most likely scenarios together. But I thought it was really interesting, obviously, and I'll recap some stuff if you guys missed it. But there's some more stuff. This is the one I was really excited for. So, moving on to the next thing. Obviously, they took a lot of items from his home, from Richard Allen's home. They seized a lot of clothing. But one thing in particular that they seized, and I got it circled here, is a black and green fox hooded sweatshirt. And now, if you were to, and I'll show this here in just a minute, but if you were to look up black and green, or if you just look up fox hooded sweatshirts, there are so many designs. It is crazy. And they also have, I guess, a connection with Monster. So not only is there just like different Fox designs, there's also ones with the Monster logo built into it. So there are a tons. But now I can't take credit for this because I saw this on Reddit. And I think this person deserves a lot more credit. So let me pull this person up real quick. But I'm gonna show a video, and like I said, this is very fascinating. But I just wanted to pull this up. So I want to whoever just in case you're watching, Nerofly. This is the person that noticed this. So I just want to give a huge shout out to him because he's the one that pointed this out. This was like 4 months ago. And I think it deserves a lot more credit because for those that are OGs and been with my channel for a long time, I've tried to dress up as BG many times. One of the things that really bugged me is what the heck this thing was. Because to me, and I'm sure a lot of people in chat, it looks like that thing's almost sticking out. And I've heard everything from like a rope to headphones to the hoodie strings, rope, hoodie strings, a mask. And I've tried just about all of it. Not all of it, but I've tried many. And if I get some time, I'll show you guys. I have tried to recreate this. Oh, and a scarf. And I just could not make it look anything close to this. And then when I saw this post, I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty close. So, if you look at the design, because remember, they took a black and green Fox hoodie, and if you were to zoom up on the design, and I know, so let's just look at the design. This is the area that we're focusing on. Obviously, it has this little kind of horn out to the right here. But imagine if his collar from, because we're kind of, obviously, the girls are to the right of him a little bit. So it's quite possible that his jacket collar is kind of blocking that top half. So it's kind of like this. And what we're seeing is this right here. And if you look at it, now let me play his video when he's walking because you can actually see it a little bit better. It's pretty wild. So bear with me 1 second here, and I'm going to shock you here. Give me just a second, guys. Oh, hold on. Let me pull. Let's see. Pull that one up right there. Zoom in like that. Do that. And do that. Bust that out. Move you. Oops. Okay, here we go. Let me start it from the beginning. Just kind of watch. You'll almost kind of see more of the design as it's sticking out. Now, I don't know if this is 100%. Obviously, this is just something, just an idea. But it's interesting because it lines up with something that they took from his home. And here we go. So I'm going to play this. Of course, that's going to... And I've got it slow motion, so it's going to slow down here in just a second. But let me know what you guys think. I wish I could blow them up a little bit more. Actually, tools, customize. Hold on, guys, 1 second. I think I can zoom it in here. Video, full screen. Gosh, where is that one? Oh, they changed the way this menu looks. All right. Anyway, I'm just gonna play it. Wish I could zoom it up a little bit more. But anyway, it's gonna. Let me get to the slow part. Okay, here we go. But you can see how that design changes, and I don't think like right there. Oh my gosh, like right there. Oh, I mean that is pretty darn close. What do you guys think? And I've got some more for you. And then we'll recap if you guys missed it. USA Libertarian, thank you so much for the $5 and the support. It means the world to me. It helps me out so much. Spiritual Genie LLC, thank you so much for the dollar donation. You are so awesome. And Karen, I appreciate your research on this case. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being a member for 10 months. That is so awesome. Yeah, I'll do another screenshot. I think, as a matter of fact, I'll take a screenshot of this one. This might be a better one. But I just wanted to show, because certain frames I was looking at, I was like, ooh, that kind of points out a little bit better. And like I said, I can't take credit for this. Somebody else pointed this out. But I thought this was fascinating because I have... That is one thing that has bugged the living heck out of me. Next to the fanny pack, because I was in between whether it was like some kind of fanny pack or a brown hoodie underneath, but you'll notice that there is weight on his fanny pack thing, that it actually bounces when you're watching it normal, when it's not slow motion. You'll see it bounce. And so clearly it's got some weight to it, which I don't think a hoodie would bounce like that. But oh shoot, I'm sorry, I've got that thing. But I think that could possibly be what that is. And of course, this design, because you can actually start to see white on the left side, and of course, we're only looking at this is just cut in half, so obviously the design is more like this. So we had it cut off like right where the hoodie's at, but obviously if you move the string, you would see this right here. But I thought that was quite interesting, and it's totally plausible. And then when you look up, boy, someone's having a concert next door. Green and black. Yeah, here we go. Just look how many designs they have. And what's interesting is you'll notice that the fox, this white fox, oh, oops, you can't see it from there. You'll notice this one's got like the horn, but you'll notice other ones don't have the horn, so it's just the circle. And so I hadn't had enough time because I just had so much that I was put together. But I mean, there are so many different designs. It's crazy. So it wouldn't surprise me if not that one, there might be another design where it was the fox, but without the actual horn on it. But I just hadn't had time to research all of them. But as I said, kind of interesting. It's tough to tell. Obviously, working with a grainy footage, but anyway, moving on to a few more things, and then we'll recap for those that missed some of the other stuff from the beginning. Get back to where I'm at here. So, if you guys did not know, they released everything that the defense used for the Frank's motion. Let me blow this up here. Now, there's quite a bit. Now, obviously, we're not going to go through everything, but it's kind of interesting. So, and I'll just kind of run down some of it. But here we've got confidential crime scene and autopsy photos, a bunch of those. This one's a big one, and we're going to talk about that. DNA documentation. Confidential photo of F tree. Confidential F tree. Confidential F tree. Wider angle. Photo of shoe under Abby's leg. Photo of cell phone under Abby's leg. Couple of photos of the bullet on the ground. Looks like they took a graph showing the depth of Deer Creek. Then we get into obviously the Odinism stuff. Where else is there? That is okay. Then some other things. We've got Betsy Blair's facial identification reference sheet. Betsy Blair's sketch number 2, which is interesting. Sounds like there's 2 sketches from Betsy. Sarah Kaba, sketch 1, which is probably the sketch we know as the original sketch. Betsy Blair had another interview in 3/7/2019, which is very interesting, which we're going to touch on. Betsy Blair did build a sketch of the vehicle, so that could be the Ford comment that was mentioned. And I think that's, like I said, it's quite a lot there. Yes, there was DNA. And so, yes, we are going to talk about that for just a moment. All right. So, it was mentioned in the search warrant for Ron Logan that they had found unknown fibers. So, that could be like clothing fibers, so like fibers from your clothing, um, and other kind of fibers. And then also in that same sentence, they may, excuse me, they say unknown fibers and hair fibers. So unknown fibers, like clothing fibers, and then unknown hair fibers, which could be human or pet. But I have a theory on that. Could it be possible that they have some kind of pet hair and or unknown clothing fiber that was found at the crime scene? And if we look, so obviously there's the DNA documentation. We noticed that, and I'm not going to go through them because there's so much, but they just took about every pair of clothing that Richard Allen owned, I'm assuming. I mean, they took everything. I mean, maybe not everything, but I mean, it sounds like my entire wardrobe of what they took from it as far as shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, jeans, shoes, but tons of shirts, sweatshirts. And so I wonder, as far as the unknown clothing or unknown fibers, could it be possibly clothing fiber? And also, they have hair because if you guys remember Kagan Klein when he was brought in, not arrested, um, as far as relation to Delphi case, that they did take a hair follicle sample from him, and I believe they also took the animal that they had from the Kleins as well. So I believe that it's quite possible that maybe the hair fibers they have could be pet hair. And could it be that they're, because we know that in photos with Richard Allen, he had cats. Anybody that owns a cat, or any pet, obviously, there's certain pets that are just, they love to shed. And so were they trying to get, match up some fibers? And to go along with the DNA, there is an interview, but I just didn't have enough time to pull it up. But there is an interview, an older one with Tobe Lesenby, where he's asked, do you have DNA? And yes, they did. They did kind of answer it and say they did have some kind of minute DNA. And I'm thinking not just these hair fibers, because obviously DNA falls into hair fibers and stuff like that, but also touch DNA. And when he's interviewed, he does kind of point to his hand when asked, and obviously it's a pretty short answer by Tobe, but he does mention, and he touches his hand, and he's like, yeah, obviously we have DNA in our pores and our sweat, and we can leave touch DNA, and that's basically how he answers it. So I think it's quite possible that they, at the very least, they have unknown fibers and hairs because they pretty much said that in the warrant. But it's possible that they do have some minute amount of DNA, like touch DNA, but it's so minute that they can't really test it on a massive scale. Now, that, of course, is speculation on my part, but it is interesting that it says DNA documentation. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Bodily fluids, DNA. Yes. All right. Just got a couple more things, and then I'll recap if you joined in, and I'll just hit on the high points here. But thought it was interesting. If you guys remember, Betsy Blair, if you guys remember Doug Carter, the infamous press conference that I'm sure most people remember because there was a lot of bombshells, and obviously it's one of the most memorable press conferences just because Doug Carter, I think it was a very emotional, moving speech by him. That was done on April 22nd of 2019. And obviously, we learned, I think, in the Frank's motion that Betsy was not happy with the original sketch that was out for the first 2 years. And she felt that this person that she saw in her sketch more resembled, obviously, the person that she believed was the suspect. And it was just so interesting that I saw that clearly, obviously, they had an interview before this, but there was an interview done by Betsy on 3/7/2019, literally 1 month prior to the famous press conference. So it seems like that interview was kind of the catalyst that brought that press conference to light, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. But to me, I think that makes a lot of sense. She was probably very confident with her sketch. And probably during that interview, probably obviously persuaded them to change gears and then release that new sketch. So, gonna take a sip here real quick. Oh, Margaret. Um, Love this show. It's so good to listen to someone who explains everything in such a level-headed and rational way. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Means the world. I mean, it's if you've been here for obviously for the OGs. Obviously, I think Richard Allen's guilty. But I still am open to anybody, and I love to hear this other side of arguments because um, it's great because you start to kind of think of outside the box. And yeah, Adam Malone, you do great work. By the way, Mob Crib, you're honest, genuine, and decent. And that's worth a lot. Thank you so much, Adam. You guys are awesome. Really, it truly um, means the world to hear that. You guys are amazing. So let's just recap everything. Like I said, I spent the last 2 days putting everything together. So we'll just quickly just touch on the highlights of everything, and then leave with that. So one more time, for the missing Athena Huff, 15 years old, brown eyes, brown hair. She just went missing 4 days ago. Anybody that's watching in Maryland or near that area, please be on the lookout for Athena Huff. If you're new to the channel, one of the things that I do on this channel is I always try to introduce a missing poster in the beginning of the show, and I attach that to a bigger, high profile case. Because if I were to do a show on Athena, sadly, it's not the viewers, it's just YouTube. It's not going to push it out. Yeah, I'll get some views on it, and sadly, that means if I did a show on Athena, she's not going to get the attention she deserves. And this is just a 15-year-old that just went missing. She was last seen at a playground and never returned. And, her family needs help. She needs to come home safely. So what I like to do is attach these to big profile cases. And I think it works out because my show gets the views it needs, and I always start out with the missing, and that's the first thing you guys will see. So, and that's one thing I always wanted to do when I got this channel. I told myself, if I get big, I'm going to do as much as I can to give back and help people. So that is the goal. So anyway, I'm just going to quickly recap everything, just some of the interesting highlights. So if you missed the first part, I just kind of went through all the witnesses that had mentioned seeing the car. We've covered this many times, but I had found something very interesting. So here's all the times in order with the witnesses. And you'll notice that almost all of them line up. The notes, they all notice that the car's parked at CPS. It's backed in. It's backed in. The only difference, Mel 2, he says it's parked odd. But he says dark smart car. where that looks kind of just like a PT Cruiser, small SUV. The only inconsistency is we have Betsy Blair, who in the middle says a 1965 Ford Comet. And but what's interesting is her and Mel 2, Terry, they both do a diagram pointing where the car was parked at and the direction it was parked, and they both had it in the same position. So would be my argument. Either one, somebody with a PT Cruiser or a small SUV backed in at 2:10 p.m. at the CPS building, then left. Then a 1965 Ford Comet minutes later comes, backs into the CPS building at the same exact spot. Then about 10 minutes later leaves. And then another dark small smart car does the same thing, parks at the CPS building and backs in, parks odd. Or could it be that she just mistaken that Ford Comet with a memory? She saw that car passing by, and kind of like the Mandela effect. We're so confident on some of our memories, and then we learn that it's the Berenstein Bears, the Bernstein Bears, stuff like that. And then I was starting to look at the word, and that kind of caught my eye. And I thought it was just interesting that because Ford did not make the Comet, it was actually Mercury, even though Ford Mercury, and it's same company. And I just thought it was interesting that she mentions the word Ford Comet. And is it possible the reason why she said Ford Comet is, did she actually see the logo Ford on the vehicle? Just a theory. But Comet. Yeah, Ford Comet. It sounds like I'm saying comment. Ford Comet. But yeah. So just a theory. And then I got a couple more real quick. And then here's the other thing. So, and I also got the diagram. Let me just grab these real quick, and then we'll. Susan Lee, thank you so much for the $5. You are so sweet. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. You are so awesome. And USA Libertarian, thank you so much. Great work. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody that's been here. I know Libertarian, and there's so many others, have been here with me for a long time. It means the world to me. And I see a couple questions, so I'll grab those here in just a minute. But one other thing that I noticed is, so then I broke down even deeper the directions that each witness was coming. And then I realized something. So I noticed there were some that arrived, but they never, when they were arriving, never mentioned seeing the car. But when they were leaving, going westbound, is when they described seeing the vehicle. So female Betsy Blair, when she's leaving, when she arrives, she didn't mention the vehicle. But when she's leaving, she sees a Ford Comet. We got male number 2, who he, I believe, came in and then came out this way. So he never passed the Hoosier Harp store. I think he came in and parked somewhere in here and then left. But he also mentioned a purple SUV when he was leaving. And then the same thing with male number 2, that when he was leaving westbound, he saw a dark smart car. And then we have female Sarah. She doesn't mention seeing a car at CP building, and she's headed eastbound. So when you put that together, that means the witnesses that were leaving and going westbound to northbound are the only ones that mentioned seeing a vehicle, which meant anybody that was heading south to eastbound never mentioned seeing the vehicle until they were leaving, which means that there was something obscuring their view and that you could only see the car if you were heading west to northbound, which I thought was very, Very interesting. Um, and then we talked about the timeline with Richard Allen, which we just kind of talked about. But the main point there is if you really break it down, you literally have three juvenile witnesses, Betsy Blair and Richard Allen, which totals to five people, all accounting for the same interaction where they all meet up in this little area here. And I don't think that would be a coincidence. And so, and he even mentions that he sees three females. So, and the other issue is if he had left at 1:30, he would have never seen those three females. Or dependent, unless he left slightly later. I don't know. I mean, maybe that could have worked somehow. But then again, the argument goes to how is he arriving but yet leaving? Because he was caught on the camera at 1:27. So that's the other argument to that. So anyway, as I said, spent a lot of time putting that together, and I got a few more. Oh, and then I guess the last thing, if you missed it, they took this black and green fox hoodie sweatshirt. There's so many different brands and designs, but it does look pretty similar to this design right here. And then one thing I did forget to mention is when you have condensed video like this, the pixels, obviously HD, you have more pixels, right? More the better the quality, the more pixels you have, the more little dots that can fill out all the little colors and stuff. But when you have worse quality, you have bigger pixels, and so they'll kind of blend in. So honestly, if we were to actually just, if we were to like, it's too bad we can't, but it's just too pixelated and condensed. But there was a way that this was, brought up to HD, I'm sure this would, not drastically, but this would look different, guaranteed. I'm sure more details would come out. If this was like the logo on the inside, I guarantee you would probably see it slightly better. But yeah, but it's interesting, and I think his collar is blocking this little part, and it's quite possible this could be the Fox logo. Because I've attempted to use rope, head, not headband, scarf, excuse me, scarf, rope, the hoodie strings. The hoodie strings too small. Earbuds are too small. And the scarf was too big. Rope was close, but you could tell it was sticking out like clearly. So I think that is, in my opinion, good possibility that's a design on the inner hoodie that he has. So, anyway, let's see. Final thoughts on everything here. Tom M says, "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone." Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it. Been with me a long time, so just like many others, I really appreciate the support. It means the world to me. We'll be going live most of the week like we did last week because I got a lot of makeup shows to make up on, and I have some other things that I'm working on. Chris works so hard. I wish I was rich. I would give more money. That's so fine. Thank you, Susan. You just being here means the world to me, just like everybody else. Thank you, Susan. Good to see Carolyn from Honor Secrets. Hope you're doing well. There's the question. Do you have time for a quick review of RA's behavior at Walmart that got him fired? They got him fired for new folks. I've heard about that. I don't know enough to be able to speak on that. I'd have to go back and I don't know if you can email me. I don't know. Did that come from the murder sheet where they spoke to witnesses that worked at Walmart? Is that where that came from? I'm not sure. Because wasn't about something kind of about women and him supposedly making women uncomfortable. I think is the rumor. I'm just gonna say rumor because we don't know for sure. But um, yeah, unfortunately, it's been a long time since I heard that story, and I don't have enough, not confident enough to speak on it. So, do you think it's another kind of symbol that is at the crime scene that they haven't Do you think it's another kind of symbol that is at the crime scene that they haven't released? Honestly, I don't know, and I wish I had more answers, but I don't. Oh, happy late birthday to Jennifer. It was her birthday Sunday. I didn't get to go live Sunday, unfortunately, but I hope you had a wonderful birthday. Please, if you can, all my wonderful mods, Karen, Jennifer, Jocelyn, D, Copper Horse, they do such an amazing job, and don't know what I'd do without them. So, anyway, doesn't look like a hoodie an older person would be wearing to me, but they did take it, so it is something that they took from his thing. So the interlocking triangles are the Volknut, Chris. Oh, is that the Odin thing? I want to look that up. I've seen that word. People are talking about that. Volknut symbol. Is that the one that I'm thinking of? Yeah, yeah. Sticks could have shifted. Oh yeah, yeah. We've definitely talked about the sticks. Could have shifted. So many different things. I feel like I missed something. Oh, there we go. Paying attention to detail is your game, Chris. Enjoy your show. Thank you so much, Josh the Posh. Like I said, uh, I love doing what I do, and I couldn't do it without your guys' support, and it means the world. And I said, I am just an average Joe, but I am passionate about what I do. But I do get things wrong, but I appreciate you guys' support. Um, Thanks, D. Yeah, I just got my hair cut. Yeah, see, we tried NetGator too. Like I said, if I had more time, but we've ran. I can't believe I almost have a 2.5 hour show. But yeah, we definitely tried that as well, and I just couldn't get anything to come close except for rope, but it still looked weird. So yes, anybody that I don't see until Thanksgiving or after, have a happy Thanksgiving. But I will be back on tomorrow. Like I said, I've got a lot of making up to do because this is my income. So your guys are my support. I do want to say thank you to Peyton. I think Peyton and for the PayPal's, for those that sent me PayPal, there was Peyton and somebody else. I just want to thank real quick. And Sharon. Thank you so much, Sharon, for the PayPal. That was so awesome. Really means the world. It helps me out so much. So I love you guys. Of course, we got stuff. If you want to support me, you can become a member. You can become a Patreon. Be having stuff coming out in a couple days for the members and Patreons. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And I love you guys. And we will see you guys tomorrow.